seats. We want to get our session started. Thanks for coming today. All right, let's everyone grab a seat. All right, and everyone please grab a seat. We want to get started. Please grab a seat. Our servers need us to be sitting down so they can do what they do so well. Come on, mayors in the back. Let's grab a seat so we can get started. Hey, mayors, by a show of hands, how many went to the Dallas Cowboys Stadium last night? Raise your hands. Let's give a round of applause for Mayor Rawlings. I know many of us never thought we'd be on a football field like that. That was awesome, and for those who got a chance to see the locker room, incredible facility. So, Mayor, great job. What we're going to do now is we're going to get started. I'm going to bring up the first vice president, which is the only vice president we have of this organization. I call her SRB, Stephanie Rawlings Blake. She's a champion in the Baltimore community, and she's going to preside over this session today. So let's give a round of applause for Mayor Rawlings Blake.
Good afternoon. It is now time for the 35th Annual City Livability Awards presentation. Each year, the City Livability Awards honors mayors for exemplary leadership and their commitment to enhancing the quality of life in our American cities. These award-winning programs represent some of the most creative and dynamic programs that are transforming cities. For the past 25 years, Waste Management has sponsored this much valued and much appreciated program because of the importance that Waste Management places on efforts which make our communities better, stronger, and safer. We are extremely grateful for the support of Waste Management, which makes our City Livability program possible. I'm very pleased at this time to introduce you, and I hope he hasn't had a chance to eat yet, so he's going to eat later, to introduce Barry Caldwell, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs and Communications with Waste Management, who will announce the 2014 City Livability Award winners. Barry, we welcome you to the 82nd Conference of Mayors, and thank you again for your support of our program.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. As I commented, I love to follow you in the Twitterverse. I think you do a great job in staying connected with your residents in your city. It's just a lot of fun. But let me say at the beginning, it is great to be back. I missed you last year in Las Vegas, but I had 2 children graduating from school at around the same time frame at opposite ends of the country. So that's an important milestone, and I couldn't miss it. My colleague Ann Reeves, however, shouldered the responsibility admirably. She leads our Public Sector Solutions organization at Waste Management, and I'm grateful to Ann for continuing to carry the Waste Management flag around these City Livability Awards. Mayor Johnson, congratulations, and really thank you. You're picking up the gavel to lead this organization probably a little bit sooner than you expected. I've had the great pleasure of seeing you now, and your tenacity and your aplomb and your grace in leading organizations and working with you in your city. And I have no doubt that you'll continue to do the same here. Mayor Mike Rawlings, let me just say simply, your city of Dallas is beautiful. Your hospitality is big, and it is very, very warm. Thank you very much for hosting us. You and your volunteers have certainly made us all feel very, very welcome, and we thank you for that. And of course, Tom, I saw Tom Cochran here earlier. Tom, your leadership of the conference continues to shine bright, and that's particularly so when you look at the execution by your staff. You know, Mayor, as leaders, we know we're only as good as the quality of the people that we surround ourselves with. And so, Tom, we salute you and we salute your staff in leading the conference forward. Mayor Johnson, as you know, and Mayor Rawlings-Blake, you both well know that providing safe and reliable waste and recycling services to your cities is really vital to the quality of life in your city. We have the privilege, frankly, of serving both of you, and we thank you for that. We have the privilege of serving a number of the cities, of the mayors that represent those cities in this ballroom, and we're very, very grateful for that. Increasingly, we are seeing cities want to make them greener, to make them more sustainable, and we are working closely with them, but we see that because you recognize how that also enhances the quality of life in your cities. So let me just say that on behalf of the 43,000 strong women and men of waste management, we have a great respect for the quality of life and the livability of your cities and communities that we have the privilege of serving. That, candidly, is why we see this as a great privilege to be a part of celebrating and recognizing mayors that are doing great things in their cities around enhancing the quality of life in their cities. That's what the City Livability Awards are all about, and that is why Waste Management remains honored to be a part of this now in our 25th year. So let's get after it. Let me start, as we usually do, with the small city category. That is comprised of 10 cities with residents of 100,000 or less. There are 10 winners here. 4 are honorable mention awardees. 5 will be outstanding achievement awardees, and 1 will win the grand prize for this category. So let me first start by acknowledging and recognizing and celebrating the honorable mention awardees. I'll call their names. We'll have them come up on the screen here. I'd ask everyone to withhold your applause until they are standing and recognized. And the honorable mention awardees for the small city category for the City Livability Awards are Mayor John Ducey of Brick, New Jersey, for the Brownfield to Greenfield program, Mayor Kathleen DeRosa of Cathedral City, California, for the Kids and Community program, Mayor Seti Warren of Newton, Massachusetts, for the WellCoin program, and Mayor Kathy Eli of Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, for the UWM Innovation Campus. Please join me in a round of applause in recognizing these mayors and their programs. And now, there are 6 remaining awardees in the small city category. Again, I'll actually direct your attention to the screens. I think it's kind of hard to miss. They are in alphabetical order by name of their city. Mayor Lily Bossy of Beverly Hills, California, for the Embrace Civility program. Mayor Joseph Sullivan of Braintree, Massachusetts, for the Dual Enrollment program. Mayor David Bowers of Roanoke, Virginia, for the Parks and Arts program. Mayor Harry Dressler of Tamarack, Florida, for the Let's Move and Play Together program. Mayor C. Kim Bracey from York, Pennsylvania, for the Teens Fourth Friday. And Mayor Christopher Calvedon of West Sacramento, California, for the Universal Preschool West Sacramento program. These are 6 outstanding cities, 6 outstanding mayors. But before I acknowledge the number 1 winning mayor, who perhaps has gotten up prematurely, let's all give the 6 a great round of applause. And now it's great pleasure to announce that the winning mayor in the small city category is Mayor Christopher Calderon of West Sacramento, California, for the Universal Preschool West Sacramento program.
Who wants to go first?
The importance of preschool is not just what we feel in our gut. Children who attend high-quality programs are less likely to drop out, are more likely to go on to college. They're healthier, they're happier, and it just goes on and on. Having those opportunities gives children the boost they need.
West Sacramento, it's a community in transition. We're growing fast. It's a really rich, diverse place, but also a lot of challenges around economic opportunity.
Do you like jam? Yeah.
I had this crazy idea. Why don't we be one of the first cities in the country to try to develop a program that delivers universal preschool for all children in our city? We only have 600 4-year-olds. We're not talking about solving some gigantic, massive problem. We're not trying to cure polio or malaria. It's 600 kids, right? Can't we do something about that?
I like that.
The way we fund universal preschool for West Sacramento is a whole bunch of sources, right? Every quarter out of the couch that we can find.
Lobster.
The state's First Five Commission, our county, the school district, and then the business community. Partners that all saw the value here.
Okay, let's see your case.
The kids have increased pre-literacy skills, increased language skills, increased math skills, and a comfort level with education as a whole. We've now tripled the number of preschool spaces available in Yolo County for preschool programs.
How we do universal preschool across California, West Sacramento's model is really one for all of us in the state to look at. It really is what we had in mind.
Javier dice si pones una.
Yeah, pick some good ones.
Upper West Sac is such a critical part of our long-term future, both in terms of opportunities for the kids, but also the sense that for the parents.
Thank you.
This is the kind of thing that keeps us here. Building from this, we say, hey, we've got them in the school, but we also want to participate in other community activities and really make this part of his life and our life.
Some of us look like our moms.
Because preschool is not seen largely as a central function of cities, they don't get that much kudos. So the City Livability Award is a really important marker, especially for a smaller city like us, that yeah, you are leading change, leading innovation in the country, and it's making a difference. For other mayors, you have all the DNA to make it happen. Don't wait for a $100 million grant from Mark Zuckerberg. It is possible through the kind of creativity that mayors bring to the table to really weave together all the resources that are out there so that very soon you could have preschool for every single child in your community. Yeah, we've got some challenges in our community, but we're tackling them. We're pushing through them. And that creates a cascade effect for parents, for volunteers in the community to say, if we can figure out in our little town how to deliver preschool for every kid, what problem can't we tackle? Just the spirit of change and transformation that's kind of taken over the community.
There you go. It's on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Mayor Christopher Calderon from West Sacramento.
You know, I feel bad because Mayor Johnson was not in my video, and I appeared 3 times in his. Thank you so much to the conference and Waste Management. This is a huge honor for my little city. And it couldn't be on a better day, given the focus of the conference on early learning all day and all weekend. But I know for many cities, especially smaller ones, you look up and you see what we saw a decade ago, which was a lot of big cities talking about their task forces for early learning and their early learning coordinators and their plan for universal preschool. And you think, I wish I had 500,000 people. I wish I had 1 million people so I could do something like that. Well, I hope our lesson is you can. What we said in West Sacramento was, well, we could do a little, and we could do a little more. How about a little impact fee on new development to help make childcare facilities happen? How about a little teeny tiny supplement to our sales tax to fund operations? How about leveraging all the money that's out there from the state? How about taking the state's preschool program and putting it in the pot? Let's just pull everything together that we can as a small little city to make something happen. And in the end, we were one of the first cities in America to offer preschool to every single 4-year-old in our community. And now we're expanding to early learning for all. And we know it makes a difference. When I hang out with these kids and I'm with them and one of them points at the wall and says, hey, you know about Pluto? And I'm like, I'm thinking Pluto from Disney. And no, the kid's pointing at the planet Pluto. And I said, oh yeah, Pluto, the planet. No, Mayor, Pluto is not a planet. Really, you're 4? Pluto's not a planet. It used to be a planet. I'm like, yeah, but it's too small to be a planet, right? He goes, well, sure, but it's because its gravitational pull is not strong enough to hold it in an atmosphere, so we can't define it as a planet. This is at age 4, and it's massive evidence of what we heard this morning about how much our young people, how much of our youngest people are capable of if we simply give them the supports and the expectations. So I'm so proud of the program. We are doubling the chances of them reading at grade level, and we can really make a difference. One caveat. There's no point in getting our earliest learners to read at grade level at grade 3 if we drop the ball at grade 3. Or getting folks to read at grade level at grade 3 if we're not producing high-quality high schools. And so we have to stick with these kids. Once we make this investment, once we believe in them at every step of the way along the ladder of education and economic opportunity so that the promise of early learning in preschool can really pay off. Thanks so much to the conference and to Waste Management for showing that small cities can help lead the way in this country. We're so proud of it. Thanks to Carol and to Justine and to Shanna, our team in West Sacramento, for making this a reality. You can do it too.
You know, I don't know if how many of you were able to participate in the breakfast this morning, where there was a fantastic discussion about early education, and we saw some presentations about the development of the child's mind from ages 0 to 5. Well, programs like this that Mayor Cabaldon is doing is squarely in that space. And to hear the story from a 4-year-old about the lack of the gravitational pull is precisely the type of stuff that we're seeing mayors do in the education space and a host of other spaces. So Mayor Cabaldon, again, congratulations to you. Okay, now for the large cities. That is all of you that are with residents of 100,000 or more. Again, there are 10 of you that are being honored. The first 4 are honorable mention awardees. Again, let me say their names and we'll applaud them afterwards. Mayor Steve Hogan of Aurora, Colorado for the Aurora Gang Reduction Impact Program. Mayor Shane Bemis of Gresham, Oregon for the Garage to Storefront Program. Mayor Mark Stadola of Little Rock, Arkansas for the Reentry Sidewalk Program. And Mayor Buddy Dyer of Orlando, Florida for the Sea Art Orlando Program. Let's give each of these mayors a warm round of applause. And now for the remaining 6 awardees in the large city category. Once again, in alphabetical order by name of their city. Mayor Robert Cluck of nearby Arlington, Texas for the Arlington Animal Services Program. Mayor Mitch Landrieu of New Orleans for the NOLA for Life program. Mayor Michael Nutter of Philadelphia for the Anti-Blight Initiative. Mayor Greg Stanton of Phoenix for the Veterans Court. Mayor Scott Smith of Mesa, Arizona for the iMesa program. And Major Angel Tavares of Providence for the Pop-Up Providence program. Again, before we recognize the first place winner, let's give each of these worthy mayors a warm round of applause. And now the winner for the large city category City Livability Award goes to Mayor Mitch Landrieu of New Orleans for the NOLA for Life program.
The worst part of my day is getting a little bleep across my BlackBerry. Mayor, we're sorry to inform you that last night shots rang out. It was a young African-American male laying face down in a puddle of blood, bullets in the back of his head, dead every day. Every day. Another day. We are at the historic Stallings Playground. I want to thank all of you for coming out.
The young men who are killing one another are doing so for a myriad of reasons. We had to adapt our strategy to deal with that. It's just not one really good police department or one really good criminal justice system or one really good reentry system or one really good education and job system. It's being really good at every one of those things.
NOLA for Life is a collection of a number of initiatives. We focus on deeply understanding the problem. Through research, analysis, we brought together focus groups. We brought experts from around the country, but then also reached out to social service providers, law enforcement.
We recognize that murder is not just a criminal justice problem, that this is truly a public health problem.
It is a mission of the people of the city of New Orleans to have a city that is murder-free. So I use my power in the mayor's office to help gather the resources necessary to do all of this, which looks like some federal funding, state funding, local funding, and then not-for-profits, faith-based community, really the entire city being involved.
You make a big difference in these kids' lives.
The longest 30 days. I'm Thelma French. I am the President and Chief Executive Officer of Total Community Action Incorporated. Our network is of 22 agencies who have committed to working with 865 young men who are considered to be the most at risk. It is good to see that the citizenry of the city, as well as the elected officials, are comprehensively working together to reduce the violence in our community.
What we're trying to do every single time that we're out there is if we got any violence is a disease, and it spreads just like any other disease unless it's interrupted. And so we hire violence interrupters. Primarily, these are individuals from the community that are credible messengers. The mayor talks about NOLA for Life being an opportunity for us to give everybody a chance to get in the game. We're trying to engage and mobilize the larger community to set new norms around violence.
So we're gonna take it back one day, brother. Today, you hear me?
NOLA for Life has definitely helped me out in a major way, giving me an opportunity to be productive. It can do the same for other people.
I'm very excited about NOLA for Life. For the first time, what you see is this comprehensive strategy and approach to reducing murder, a paradigm shift for the acceptance, tolerance, and laissez-faire attitude towards it.
The data reflects that we're making great progress, and it's wonderful. And it can be celebrated just for a second. Because even on our best day, the city of New Orleans continues to have murders between young African-American men that is exponentially higher than the national average.
Tell me where y'all are from.
It's not okay just to blow it off, to say that their lives are not worthy, and to say that it's thugs killing thugs. Some things in this country are worth just stopping for and just saying that is not who we are as a people. And we demand to change.
How you doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2014 winner of the City Livability Award in the large city category, Mayor Mitch Landrieu of New Orleans.
I don't get overwhelmed very easily. Mayor, I thought Pluto was a dog. Thank you all so much. Thank you to the conference, to Waste Management, to all of my fellow mayors, and to my mayors emeritus. It's great to see all of you. Thank you so much. And Barry, thank you and Waste Management for sponsoring that event. Congressman, thank you so much. It's great to be in your town. And Mr. Mayor, your city looks great. And thank you so much for hosting this unbelievable conference. I accept this award on behalf of all of the people of the city of New Orleans who have struggled so mightily over the past couple of years with so many difficulties, but of course this must be the most difficult one that we have tried to confront. I have with me Charles West, who's the director of my innovation team, who on behalf of the city of New Orleans, and our Deputy Mayor Judy Reese-Morris, who really quarterbacked this program here. Charles, thank you, and to all the folks in the city of New Orleans that have worked so hard. You know, I'm overwhelmed that you guys have recognized that we're trying to do some good work on a most difficult issue. We call it NOLA for Life because at the end of the day, it really is about a fairly simple notion. If you can't feel safe, you really can't be free. And all of us have the need, the desire, the yearning to be able to seek and hopefully find those things that are going to make us the best human beings that we can become. And so as I became aware of Mayor Johnson's speech yesterday about mayors and cities 3.0, and then I got an opportunity to listen to the Bezos Foundation talk about early childhood education. And then we come to earlier today in the plenary session and we hear about bullying. My mind went to this notion that is so sacrosanct for us as Americans, but we mostly speak it about the field of battle on a distant shore, where as Americans we leave no soldier behind. That's a very important principle. It's a wonderful aspiration for us as a country, and it's one that we ought to replicate on the homeland as well. And it just occurs to me that the mayors of America are really the warriors in the battle to make sure that we never leave any American behind. And unfortunately, what's been happening in our country over a long period of time is that there's so many of us, so many of our young children that are not being given the opportunity, so many of our young men whose lives are being threatened every day, so many of our children that are not being given the tools to learn, so many different ways and so many different things that have to be fixed. And we as mayors, because we're there and because we can't turn away, have to find a way or we have to make one. And one theme that is universal throughout this conference, and mayors know this, is it's not always about more money, although resources help. It really is about coordinating efforts from the federal, state, and local, right, horizontally and vertically and across every sector. And Mayor, when you were telling me about your early childhood program, what you saw was a complete commitment to cooperation and making sure that we all are trying to do more with the very little bit that we have. And I'm here to tell you that in that video that you saw, you actually saw our U.S. attorney in that video. You also saw federal agents from the DEA, ATF, FBI. You also saw the New Orleans Police Department. You also saw folks on the state level, probation and parole officers. Everybody had to come to the table when they knew that the commitment to save people's lives was paramount in their mind. And I am just really thrilled that you guys have given us the opportunity to share some of these information with you. And I would be remiss if I did not mention my brother, Michael Nutter, who has been walking this path with me as well as other mayors in Cities United. It is not acceptable in the United States of America in the second decade of the 21st century for young African American men to be being killed at the rates that they're being killed on the streets of America. The level of violence is unacceptable. It's morally wrong, and I have to say to you that it sears us as a nation because it speaks to who we are as a people. And every one of us in here knows that we are much better than that. And that is why we aspire to create a city of peace in the city of New Orleans. And if there's anything that we can do to help lead the nation in the right direction in partnership with our other cities, we are thrilled to do that. God bless you all. Thank you so much, and I sincerely appreciate the award.
Congratulations, Mayor. Congratulations to all 20 of you. You know, I've heard from several mayors from time to time that the City Livability Awards is the highlight for their visit here. And I think it's precisely because of these 20 different programs in a range of spaces, whether it's safety or education or urban blight or the arts or whatever. These are best practices. These are things that can be replicated in your cities. You have better ideas out there. The U.S. Conference of Mayors staff wants your ideas. They want to evaluate them. They want to see them up here so they can be recognized as further evidence of how you, day in and day out, mayors, enhance the livability and the quality of life in your cities. And it's just a joy, again, for Waste Management to be a part of it. Thank you for allowing us. Mayor Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you very, very much. Powerful programs. Before we begin our discussion on transportation, I would like to take a moment to honor a Conference of Mayors leader who served as vice chairman of the Transportation and Communications Committee. Mayor John Marks was first elected mayor of Tallahassee in 2003 and now serves as a USCM trustee. He will be leaving office this year, having decided not to seek re-election. As one of our leading experts on communication issues, Mayor Marks strengthened the Transportation and Communications Committee. This organization is much more dynamic today because of his willingness to tackle this very complex area. It is most appropriate that we honor Mayor Marks at this luncheon because he won our 2011 City Livability Award for Tallahassee's Utilities Neighborhood REACH program, a collaborative effort that brought together a variety of city services focused on improving livability within traditionally low-income neighborhoods through promoting energy efficiency. Please join me in thanking our friend, Mayor John Marks, for his unwavering service to the people of Tallahassee and to the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
Oh, wow. You know, I know they recognize people when they decide not to seek another term as mayor. And I got to tell you, everybody's asked me, well, you're not seeking another term, you're not running again. They say, are you term limited? And I say, no, I'm wife limited. And I got, and that's the truth. I owe a lot of it to a young lady that I met a number of years ago when we were in college, and she has decided that for a number of years that she would stick with me and stay with me through a journey that we both enjoyed so very, very much. And part of it has been being mayor of the city of Tallahassee, amongst other things. So I got to take this opportunity to introduce you to my wonderful, wonderful wife. She's here. Here she is. Stand, Jane. Please stand up, please. Isn't she cute? I don't know how she stayed with me, but, you know. Stephanie said she was thinking the same thing. Thank you. It has been truly an honor. It has been truly my pleasure to be a part of this organization. You cannot imagine what it has meant to me and what it has meant to the city of Tallahassee, and maybe you can. I can tell you that this is an organization that really, truly, we do a lot for the citizens of our communities. And I would not be up here or doing the things that I've done for the city of Tallahassee over the last 11 and a half, almost 12 years, but for the fact that I've been a part of this particular organization. I want to thank Tom Cochran. Thank you. I want to thank all the mayors and everybody who I've had an opportunity to serve with. You all have been, Elizabeth Kaus, wonderful. I mean, Elizabeth and my wife, they commiserate together all the time. You know, it's just been a wonderful experience, a truly wonderful experience. I really, you know, Jane says, you're going to have withdrawal symptoms, you're going to have a problem. And I say, well, let me give it a shot before it happens. So again, thank you so very much. I love all of you all. Thank you very much. Thanks here.
A truly great statesman. So as we know, one of our top priorities as mayors is infrastructure. Infrastructure investment is a bipartisan issue. Over 90% of Americans are concerned about our crumbling infrastructure. Recently, in Baltimore, a whole city block collapsed down a hill into a railroad track right after heavy rain. And I know that many of you saw the issue that's going on in, I believe it's Minnesota, where a hospital is threatened to have to go out of business because of it's right near a landslide. Infrastructure isn't just roads and highways, it's also energy and facilities and clean water. But for today's session, we'll focus on transportation. Investing in transportation infrastructure creates much needed jobs in the short term. But making transportation a priority is also critical to our success over the long term. You cannot compete in a global marketplace unless you've got world-class infrastructure to move goods and people and connect our metro regions to the world. So as mayors, we must work with the state and federal agencies to drive these investments. I would like to now call on Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed, who just left his Transportation Committee, right? Chair of our Transportation Committee, he just convened that meeting to discuss our top priorities, reauthorization of the Surface Transportation Act. I want to thank Mayor Reed for his tireless advocacy on Capitol Hill, even on national news, fighting for us for these transportation dollars, his continued efforts to make sure that the next bill strengthens local investment and authority. Mayor Reed. Out of the park, Mayor.
And I want to compliment Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake for something really important, being named the Vanity Fair's Best Dressed List of Mayors. Give it up for her. I love that. You know, I appreciate your leadership. You're a woman of substance and beauty, and we're so glad to have you. I really appreciate it. To my colleagues, I can't tell you how delighted I am to be with all of you today. Everybody knows how important transportation and infrastructure is to all of our futures. And that's why it's time for us to get involved right here, right now. Our conference has rightly made investment in transportation and infrastructure a priority for our work and for our convening. And that's why this is such an essential topic. These vital networks and systems really do undergird so much of our economic output in our local areas across the United States. You know better than anyone that transportation keeps our local economies thriving, expanding, and we literally do drive U.S. economic growth and output. And we face challenges in conveying these realities because we understand this issue better than most. As I see it today, the top challenge before us is this: we as mayors must raise our voices in a way that we have never done before, make them louder and more compelling in terms of investing in transportation right here, right now, because the world is literally passing us by. We must help convince an increasingly weary public to come together and invest more in transportation networks. And when I look around this room, I see mayors who are achieving that objective while other folks in Washington are unable to get that done. We've got to go back to our towns and our cities and our counties and convince our local folks at home that we must do more. We must make the case that additional resources are needed to expand our network to secure the future prosperity of our cities and our states. I don't think any of us underestimate the task before us, locally and before the Congress. Raising new revenues is not easy, but it must be done, as all of us know. We're often the ones in government who have been at the forefront of delivering new resources for critical investment needs. We are the ones who are increasingly creative enough to find a way. In our United States Congress, the last time that we had a long-term bill was in 1998. This is when Congress last passed a multi-year transportation bill, one that tried to match resources to the needs. That law was TEA 21. And since that time, local leaders have outperformed their partners. We've grown our commitments to transportation faster than either the states or the federal government. Now we must translate what has been learned at the local level about raising revenue and governmental leadership to our friends and partners in the United States Congress. We must now help them do their part in meeting our nation's critical infrastructure needs. We have leaders in Congress who are trying to do just that. In a few minutes, we'll hear from Congresswoman Johnson. She has been a true leader, fighting to raise more federal resources overall and to direct more resources to local areas, which is exactly what we need. Mayors have to have an essential seat at the table if we want to move the country faster. As a senior member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, she is in the midst of the House deliberations to develop a multi-year bill, including raising the funding commitments in the legislation. She works closely with the panel's chairman, Bill Schuster of Pennsylvania, who joined with us in January, about 1 year ago, in Las Vegas at our last annual meeting. And he has been a great champion of this kind of investment. Notably, it was Chairman Schuster's father, who then as chairman of the same committee, helped enact the TEA 21 law that I just referenced. But before we even get to this larger question, enactment of a renewal with more robust funding that includes direct investment in cities is the area that must be addressed. We must then look to the deficit in our federal trust fund. Later this summer, the federal trust fund, for the first time, will not keep pace with its liabilities. Or to say it more plainly, the trust fund is heading towards insolvencies. Sometime soon, the fund's insolvency will be addressed by Congress, hopefully with an addition of funding. But that is not enough. That simply doesn't allow mayors across the United States of America to engage in the kind of long-term planning that we need. But the larger challenge remains. How do we convince our friends in Congress to take some hard votes to raise the $100 billion in additional revenues that will be needed to grow our investments and secure our transportation network? I concede that nobody wants to raise taxes, but we can't pretend much longer that all revenue-raising responsibilities can be shifted to mayors at the local level either. The bottom line is doing hard things is hard, but we must not shrink from this at the local level or the federal level. When I had the pleasure of testifying before Chairman Schuster and Congresswoman Johnson committees on behalf of this organization, we talked about the need to act and the importance of supporting mayors in their local areas in their transportation investments. In exchange for Congress acting, we promised that we would mobilize and give our members of Congress support across the United States of America in a bipartisan fashion. Specifically, I underscored our shared priority about the importance of investing in metro areas, as our Global Insight report shows. According to their projections, in all of our metros across the United States of America, 363 in total, there will be another 84 million residents added over the next 30 years. This is more people than the current population of my home state of Georgia, as well as Arizona, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia combined. 59 metro areas will grow by more than 50%, and 21 will grow by more than 75%. We know that we won't have the infrastructure in place to serve these folks if we try to go forward as we have been going forward in the past. We've got to turn into the fire. It is in these areas, our metros, that now generate the overwhelming share of the nation's economic output and our population. And as our metro economy reports show, they will generate an even larger share of our nation's future economic growth. Take my hometown, the Atlanta region. Today, it accounts for nearly 60% of all jobs in Georgia. My region's economic output of $294 billion in 2012 exceeded the output of about 30 states. Given these realities, we must strive to get all partners, federal, state, regional, and local governments, private entities, and the public sector to the transportation decision-making table, instead of pretending that concentrating power with state transportation bureaucracies is the solution. And this is the core message that we have to be unified on, Mayor. We have to send a clear signal to everyone that we're going to demand that mayors are at the table whenever these appropriation decisions are made. That's the future. And the time, we can clap for that. And the time has come to direct more resources to our cities and their regions. And I want to close with this comment. We often talk about the power of federal investment. Of course, when we do, we cite the Eisenhower Interstate Highway System, a massive investment that connected our cities and metro areas together all across the United States of America. Investment in this system meant spending millions and billions of dollars in places where few people lived at the time. But so many of our cities have developed from those wonderful places. This was the defining transportation infrastructure of the last century. In this century, it must be about interconnecting our metro areas from within, improving the economic performance of cities and our metros. This is where most of us now live, and where many more of us want to come to build their future. This is where our wealth is being produced to the benefit of the nation. This is the challenge of the next transportation bill that we're asking for your help with. The President has weighed in to say we must raise our investment levels. We believe he is right. He has said that we should shift our emphasis toward more investment in transit and freight and direct more resources to metro areas where local officials decide how available funds are invested. We thank the President and Secretary Fox for their leadership on this renewal. But here's the deal, folks. In the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, $784 billion was invested. Of that amount, 10% of it went to road and transportation projects. That 10% investment yielded 35% of the verifiable jobs. We all know that our metros are responsible for more than 70% of GDP, 85% of the nation's economic growth and population. But if we don't invest in our cities, we'll continue to have national GDP growth at 2%, 2.2%, or 2.3%, when the real need is actually for our country's economic GDP to grow at 3%. And while some may act like that's a small matter, it's not really just about 1%. It's about 50% in growth between 2% and 3%. That's the way that we must look at it, because that equates to millions in new jobs and billions in additional economic investment. So what we must decide is to make these infrastructure investments, because when we do that, we invest in jobs that are not tradable, can't be outsourced. They're in our communities and in our cities today. So I think it's time for mayors to come together, to stay on message, to be united, because literally the success and the prosperity of all of our cities and metros and states is vital. And through our cooperation, and through our passion, and through our leadership, we strengthen our country. Thank you for the time to brief you today.
Mayor Reed, thank you so much. You can now see why we are getting the attention that we are as doers, as mayors, because of your advocacy. So I want to thank you very much. Now, as we continue the largest family reunion ever, I'd like to bring up our host mayor, Mike Rawlings, to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, sister. Hope everybody had a good time last night. We're planning to dial it up a little bit tonight, so you're going to see have cocktails at a great museum that is fresh to the United States, and then a park, and listen to the sounds of Lyle Lovett. You're going to meet a lot of people from Dallas. Our city council is here. You know what? We're all mayors, but we really do it with our city council, and I want to just take a point of personal privilege and introduce Judge Von Seal Jones-Hill, who is my city councilman here in Dallas. And she and her folks are going to be here with us tonight because it's the people that we're proud of. One of the things that's going to be cool tonight is we built a park over a highway because transportation is so important, as you said, Mayor. And one of the people that really made our transportation vision a reality is our Congressman, Eddie Bernice Johnson. She's helped the United States in many, many ways. She's been a representative since 1993. She serves as the ranking Democrat on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee and a senior member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. During her time on Capitol Hill, she has been a leader on public health and infrastructure investment, as well as scientific research and improved science education. To say that she has been a champion of all things Dallas is a major understatement. I'm sure many of you have had the opportunity to ride the largest light rail system in the United States, our DART line. She has been a mother of that. She's experienced part of our Trinity River projects, our bridges. These projects and more really came as a result of her passion. But her work and accomplishments run much deeper in Dallas. She's equally passionate and dedicated advocate for our nation's city, as well as the other issues in Dallas. And I'm going to tell you, she has got the ear of the White House. You could tell this morning she met with Secretary Duncan. The White House listens. She has been an advocate for driving surface transportation for all of us, for mayors, of local elected folks. She is a big supporter of a rapid transit. I could go on for 10 minutes, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna introduce my friend, Honorable Eddie Bernice Johnson.
Let me say good afternoon and say thanks to my mayor for that introduction. I'm delighted to have you here. I hope you enjoy Dallas, and I hope you enjoy District 30, which is my district, that the people have given me the opportunity to serve for 21 and a half years. And it has been my privilege and an opportunity to work with local governments and mayors. The only thing that I have not had the privilege to do is have all of these mayors a member of the Transportation Committee. Because if we had mayors in the Transportation Committee, we wouldn't have to worry about getting anything done. But before I go further, in addition to the city of Dallas, there are suburban cities of which I also represent, and I know the mayor of DeSoto is here, and I hope Duncanville, Lancaster, Hutchins, that might also be here. But I want to acknowledge the city of Dallas and its leadership that's sitting at this table here, our former city mayor, manager that's here, that have been the basis of my knowledge for the entire time that I have been in Washington. Anyone who goes to Washington and tell you they don't need the information from home, you watch them. Let me assure you that before I went to Washington, I didn't even know what a 100-year flood was. But I always knew, being from Texas, how important transportation was, because we have such a long and wide state. And we always bragged about our highways. Not recently. But we had the greatest highway system in the country. And so I knew by that transportation was important to Texas. So when I went to Washington, I asked for the Transportation Committee. But I also knew, because I grew up here with Texas Instruments, a homegrown company, that technology was going to be the future. Because I met Dr. Kilby, and I knew all the founders of TI, and I met the man who developed that chip, that semiconductor, and I knew that that was going to change the world, and it has. And so that was my first choice, was to be a part of getting our young people ready for the age of technology, the age of information, and all of the horizons that they can help to open for our nation. So those two areas, and I've bounced back and forth on these committees between my opportunities and what I want to focus on. When we went a majority as a Democrat, I moved to the leadership in a committee in transportation so that I could take care of the Trinity River. And so I chaired the Water Resources Subcommittee. I left the chair and ranking membership of the Science and Technology Subcommittee on Technology and Research to do that. And so then I just kind of moved as I saw where I could influence for something back home. But I couldn't have done it without having the accurate information from home, that I could sit quietly debate. I'm not a noisy person, but I'm a persistent person. And so my speech really has been given by the mayor of Atlanta. Because, see, I know all of the mayors know how important transportation is, because we do have to move people and goods. And our major urban areas are just getting larger with people. I know that, like here, this is the largest growing area in the nation, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so transportation has been critical here, moving people and moving goods. And our economy depends on trade here. So we have to also think about moving goods. And I have to do a real nice little dance between business and labor on trade. But we have to do that. Our economy depends on trade. We are the Mecca, we are the magnet for the world. And so we are attracting many more people coming to our country. And no other area in the world has seen the beauty of that diversity than the area where I live. This is one of the most diverse areas in the nation. And this city has gained from that diversity, and we try to celebrate it. We try to make sure that there is input from everyone, and we have been a better city because of it. We're trying very hard now to address the transportation issue. We know that the trust fund is dripping its last drips. And if I had everybody, every mayor in this audience and understand how critical it is to bring more resources to the table to address infrastructure issues, we wouldn't have a problem. But you're not there. And that creates a problem for us because, you know, we're in a very austere attitude in Washington. And every poll, no matter where it's taken in this country, even in this area and all over, people understand that we have to pay for infrastructure. People understand that you cannot get the improvements that you need and keep up the highways from travel without having additional resources. But translating that into votes is difficult. We have good leadership on the committees, both House and Senate. We've had hearings, we've had roundtables. Our chairman and others have traveled around the nation talking about our needs. Our Secretary of Transportation has made a bus trip through the country and came to Dallas. And we've had tremendous leadership from Secretaries of Transportation during the time I've been in Washington, starting back with Secretary Pena, Secretary Mineta, who was my first chairman on the Transportation Committee, Secretary Slater, Secretary LaHood, and most recent secretary who came from a mayorship in Charlotte, and that has been extremely helpful, Secretary Fox. We are delighted to have all that leadership. 65% of America's major roads are rated in less than good condition. 65%. That means it's not a place anywhere in the nation does not have needs for improved infrastructure. 1 in 4 American bridges require significant repair, and often they don't get attention until they start dropping off and pieces dropping out. But 45% of the Americans do not have access to transit services. So we are looking at a picture that's fairly dismal, and we're trying very hard to address it, and you can help us make a difference. Write those letters, make those calls, visit with your congresspeople, come to Washington, but never stop trying to educate, because it's like the airwaves. When you see those negative ads day after day after day after day, it has an impact. If you do a positive ad day after day after day after day, it too will have an impact. So don't stop asking. Don't stop educating. You're really in the center of where the attention you can't ignore what the situations are. You're right near the people, the infrastructure. You are the first people to know about the floods. You're the first ones to know about the potholes. You're the first ones to know about congestion. And so make that information known. This year, the Department of Transportation Secretary Anthony Fox proposed a Grow America Act that generating renewal opportunity, work and accelerated mobility, efficiency and rebuilding of infrastructure, and for communities throughout the nation. And we're trying to be of support. We believe that you are, but we also know that you have got to make your voices heard. I am not going to try to present to you a picture that's not real. Clearly, you know, you see the divide between Democrats and Republicans. That divide is not nearly as great in terms of relationships as it looks on television, because it makes for good news. We can talk to each other. We do a lot of talking to each other. I'm surrounded by people of the other party, but we talk all the time. I just can't make them vote my way. I need your help for that. But, you know, this bill has been introduced by both the chairman of the subcommittee and the ranking member, Representative Petri from Wisconsin and Representative Eleanor Holmes Narden from Washington, D.C. And we have not yet had a hearing. It is a $3.2 billion four-year proposal. Now, all of us know that in infrastructure of all things, a one-year bill does not any good because you can't plan. Most big projects take longer than that. When I went to Washington, it was a 6-year reauthorization. And I thought that was a little short because when you consider the kind of projects that we have to address that might take 6 years to build, it surely doesn't make sense to wait every year to see whether or not it's going to be reauthorized. And so not only has that become more important, it is really essential that you, the leaders of each city, have the opportunity to plan and depend on some way to make sure that it comes through. I remember going to Washington in 1993. It was reauthorization time for the highway bill, we call it. And I remember very well putting in 2 bridges, I-35 and I-30. And I was able to get them in. I was in a majority. The only term, my first term, I was in a majority, and we were ready to go. And then we lost it at the end of the first term. And we lost it for 12 years. But during that time, I was able to get those bridges in, and I was very proud of myself. Then we had a president elected right from here, who lives right here in Dallas, who pulled that money back and said that we had to pay for the war. And we are now just getting started on those bridges. So that is one of the reasons why we have to know a period of years what's available for planning and implementing so that when you start a project, you know it can be finished. And so I'm hoping that you will continue to push for multi-year planning so that you, as leaders of our local governments, can plan along with the states to get projects not only started but completed. $7 billion for highway safety. The National Highway Safety Administration and Federal Motor Carrier Safety Act is a part of it. $199 billion for our highway system and road safety, an increase of 22% over fiscal year 2014 funds. $72 billion in transit, an increase in almost 70% over fiscal year 2014 funds, which includes $5.1 billion increase in funding to deal with maintenance and $2 billion over a 4-year period for fast-growing communities. Now, those are major components of this Grow America Act. I know you can identify with where we can use every penny and still have some more needs. But in general, it allows high-performing large metropolitan planning organizations to strengthen local decision-making. It allows the Department of Transportation Secretary to designate the metropolitan planning organizations but provides criteria so that they and the Secretary can work together. It is very hard to have disjointedness when you're trying to deal with national problems. This country depends on a network where people and goods can move around as safely and as rapidly as possible. It cannot be planned in a vacuum. It has to be planned throughout a state, interstate, working together. We need seamless, multimodal transportation throughout our nation, and we've tried to do that in Dallas. Now, all of us know that we talk about Dallas and Fort Worth. This is the region that we're in. But it's just been the last 10 or 15 years that Dallas and Fort Worth saw themselves as Dallas and Fort Worth rather than Dallas and Fort Worth. And so we're beginning to understand that our transportation planning has to be done together. And so a little over 15 years ago, I was trying to figure out how we were going to do this because I couldn't get the mayor of Dallas and the mayor of Fort Worth to talk in public. And so I asked Irving, Texas, to host a transportation summit. And I said, and we're going to invite every stakeholder within a 60-mile radius to come together and talk to each other so that we can get Dallas and Fort Worth to understand that this is a hub. It is a single hub, Dallas, Fort Worth. And that was really after the airport. It's happened. And I'm so delighted with the leadership that we have in our mayor's office, the leadership in Fort Worth, and all of the people that we've tried to get in between. We're now planning a seamless intermodal transportation system for this region. And you watch us, we're going to outdo you because we are centrally located in this country. You can move your headquarters here, and I'm not doing the same story as my governor. I'm just saying, we do have the largest number of corporate headquarters in the nation right in this area. And it's because of that airport out there that you can connect and go from coast to coast in one day. You can go to the West Coast and back, you can go to the East Coast and back. You don't have to travel 3 or 4 days if you're located on the West Coast to get to the East Coast and vice versa. And we can connect to the world very easily. And we have the NAFTA corridor that's from Canada to Mexico, with most of it being in Texas, I-35, a highway that's never finished. They work on a section, finish that, they move to another section, finish that, move to the next. That's because of the traffic. And I know you can identify with movement. We are challenged like every other city. But cities and mayors working together, understanding the problem and influencing the federal process, we can achieve. We've had good leadership in place in DC dealing with transportation issues. Only thing we need is the pressure, most especially from our mayors. I know many mayors from around the country. I might not know you personally, but I know your reputations. I know the whole Landrieu family. And I've been to Louisiana to work for his sister that I have great regard for. And is there a mayor here from South Bend, Indiana? Well, I went to college in South Bend, Indiana, at St. Mary's University, Notre Dame. And so I always think of that as one of my home cities. But I'm a native of Waco, Texas, just south of here, and that I don't always like to brag about. But it's the home of Baylor. All of this must come together. I-35 runs through Texas one way, north-south. I-30 runs east and west, and we connect with everybody in this room. But what's more important is that we must connect efficiently, safely, and environmentally clean. So the only way we do that is to work together and keep the pressure on in Washington. Nobody's more influential than hometown people. Nobody has more impressions on people in Washington, especially since that election a couple of weeks ago, than hometown people. Because we know now that we can never forget from whence we have come, and you will be the engine behind getting something done as it relates to transportation in this nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Very well done, and thank you so much for your continued leadership and advocacy, Congresswoman. I am now, thank you very much, Mr. President. I think I've been doing an okay job in your stead. Thank you. So, we are now to the point where we are at our last presentation, and that is Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. And since Mayor Reed has already embarrassed me about the Vanity Fair list, I'll tell you that only 3 U.S. mayors, I don't know who made the decisions. I'll just take it, accept it, and be happy about it. But the other person that was on there was Mayor Emanuel from Chicago and Mayor Garcetti from LA, and I was so pleased because I thought finally my daughter would think I had style because of the article. She says that she didn't know what they were talking about because I have old lady style, not young people style. So when you see her out there, you can tell her it's not true. All right. So Mayor Garcetti was with us at our last annual meeting before he was even sworn in, which to me demonstrated his commitment to being an active USCM member. He is now chairing our Trade in the Americas Task Force, and I look forward to his continued leadership in many other areas. Today, Mayor Garcetti is going to provide some thoughts on back to basics, creating a prosperous, livable, safe, and well-run city. Please join me in welcoming someone who Vanity Fair said had the awesome good looks of an actor, Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your friendship for so many years. We were city council presidents together at the same time, and it's wonderful to be in these new roles together. Thank you to our leader, Kevin Johnson, who has become a dear friend, a great California mayor, a great U.S. mayor, a great worldwide mayor. When we went through a little thing in Los Angeles with an owner of the Los Angeles Clippers named Don Sterling, his leadership in helping us through that as a former basketball great as well as a great mayor was integral. So thank you so much for your friendship and your leadership as well. I'm kind of reminded right now, because we've had some great speeches of a quote by Winston Churchill, that everything that needs to be said has been said, but it hasn't been said by everybody, so here I am. But I'm really very proud to be here to build on the great work of my city and my predecessor, Antonio Villaraigosa, who was here this morning and I know is still around, and his great leadership of this group, as well as Tom and everybody else here on the board, Mayors Reed and other dear friends, and each one of you who make the commitment to each other. There's always a political price that comes with travel, but there's a greater political benefit that comes from us commingling with each other. And I'm so proud to represent the great city of Los Angeles, a place that when John F. Kennedy accepted the presidential nomination in our Memorial Coliseum once said, giving that New Frontier speech, he said Los Angeles was the last frontier for this nation, a place of great innovation and excitement, our last great hope for America. And today I join all of you, over 100 mayors from cities around this country, as a reminder of just how great this country is. As I mentioned, Mayor Johnson of Sacramento, a city built up by hardy Swiss settlers, now capital of the greatest state in the Union. Mayor Reed of Atlanta, the buzzing hub of Southern business, home to Coca-Cola, CNN, one of the world's largest aquariums. Mayor Alex Morse, attending from Holyoke, Massachusetts, an old mill town that's home to the second largest St. Patrick's Day parade in the nation. Deidre Waterman of Pontiac, Michigan, who gave us the GTO and countless other iconic cars and now welcomes fearless adventurers to not just one, but 2 nationally renowned haunted houses. So I'm so glad as well that mayor of this other small town on the other coast, Bill de Blasio, I think his name, is going to be here as well. We've been friends for a long, long time. And now if there's one thing people from New York and LA can agree upon, it's that there are plenty of differences between our 2 cities, but as my dear friend learned this week, one important difference is that only one of our cities can be the Stanley Cup champion at any given time. So, as you might have heard me say nationally, it was a big day for us in Los Angeles, and I'll just leave it at that. Always make sure and check if it's on live TV ahead of time. But of course, we also have Dallas, Texas, and thank you to Mayor Rawlings, and the home of some of the best Tex-Mex, the barbecue, Frogan margaritas that you can have. And for your pressing the corporate sector here, I know you've twisted a lot of arms, and I want to thank all the sponsors that made this such a warm welcome. Let's give them a round of applause again, and thank you so much, Mayor Rawlings. When you think about American history, it doesn't run through places where people don't live. Think about the name places of Jamestown and Williamsburg, of Lexington and Concord, of Charleston, Savannah, Philadelphia, Boston, Atlanta, Selma, Seneca Falls, San Antonio, Chicago, San Francisco, New Orleans. This is American history. When we talk about our towns and our cities, this is where we have made our destiny. I recently met with Professor Benjamin Barber, I think most of you know, who just wrote a great book. If you haven't got it, you should buy it. It's called If Mayors Ruled the World. Wouldn't that be nice? But it gets to the point that where we see national inaction, not just in this country, but globally, it is we who are called upon to be the leaders of today. See, America's heartland isn't wheat fields that are in distant places. Today's American heartland is a city park. It's a library. It's a coffee house where America meets one another, where we come together and where we dream the next chapter of our nation. In the past, cities did lead our globe. Think about Venice and the trading power they had, the learning power of Alexandria, the democracy that was Athens. It's fitting, perhaps, that politics and cities have the same Greek root, polis. In other words, that means city, and that's where politics come from. People came to the city in order to engage in politics, which wasn't seen as a negative. It was a way of making a better life for ourselves. And today we're seeing a return to that, charged by the dynamism of American cities. There are so many things that make our cities different, but there are so many things that we share together. We're united by the basic need to protect our constituents and our businesses, the basic need to have cops on the streets to help our citizens avoid the violence and fear that Mayor Landry so eloquently spoke about, the basic need to have firefighters and paramedics to get ready as possible, as quickly as possible to get people out of harm's way. Those essential services that we're united by, sanitation to keep our families healthy and our streets clean, traffic control to prevent accidents, united by the fact that the challenges they talk about in Washington are real, on the ground in our city's streets. We hear a lot of talk in Washington about stimulating our economy. We hear a lot about creating jobs, but we know that 80% of this nation's GDP runs through our cities. We hear a lot of talk in Washington about energy security and climate change, but cities are responsible for an estimated 70% of all greenhouse gas emissions. We hear a lot of talk in Washington about infrastructure, but those streets and those transit lines are ours. Gridlock, shutdown, filibusters. Well, gridlock in Washington doesn't solve any of the gridlock on our streets, and government shutdowns don't open up any businesses in our neighborhoods, and filibustering doesn't help fill our potholes. So in cities around the country and in Los Angeles, my town, we're taking action now to address those basic challenges. That's what a Back to Basics agenda is about. We're taking the lead on tackling climate change, getting rid of coal in the nation's largest municipally owned utility. We've set up our own renewable portfolio standard and created a green jobs capital on the west coast of this country. I recently traveled to Mexico, where Los Angeles, being the second largest Mexican city in the world, you actually go back to Mexico for number 3. And there's 39 countries that can boast their largest population outside their home country living in LA. There, we get received not as mayors, but almost as heads of state, meeting with presidents and governors in order to promote trade, from LA restaurants to aviation, our aviation industry, looking at universities coming together. Increasingly, the world looks to mayors to get things done. The city of LA owns and operates the nation's largest seaport and busiest origin and destination airport in the world. America's port in Los Angeles, it's your port, creates jobs in every corner of the United States. We're investing $7 billion in our airport, more than $1 million a day in our ports, making sure that the diversity that we have, making sure that the United States stays as a gateway for Latin America to Asia and for Asia to Latin America, that comes through our town. Just like Rotterdam or Hangzhou of the past, we look ahead of the 21st century in creating one of the great trading hubs and the great sharing hubs of the world together. And immigration, you look at that as an example, which is certainly the purview of the federal government, but we don't have to wait to exercise power for action from Washington. I've created an Office of Immigrant Affairs in the city of Los Angeles, making sure that we fully integrate immigrants into the daily life of our city, that we push for, yes, good comprehensive immigration reform at the national level, but that we also make sure that people have their rights protected, that we make sure there's not a shadow economy in Los Angeles, but opportunities for scholarships, opportunities for libraries and social services to be had by all. We see in Los Angeles and California, and increasingly in this nation, an understanding that these practical problems must be solved with practical solutions. And after decades of inaction, we've started to act and not wait. I think it was the best line in the President's State of the Union this year when he said, if you're a mayor or a governor, don't wait for action from Washington. And we haven't been. We've been working together with the White House. We've been working together with members of Congress when we can. But where we can't, we just have to get the job done. Take veterans, for example. I know we'll be meeting shortly about veterans. In Los Angeles, we just launched a 10,000-strong initiative to hire 10,000 veterans in the next 3 years. As a member of the armed forces myself, serving in the Navy, I see my shipmates and other military veterans come home from war. We greet them with smiles and hugs, but not with a job. 40% of the veterans coming back from recent wars in one of my community colleges who were going to school were homeless. That's a shame in this country and something that we're changing. Mayors like Greg Stanton in Phoenix, each one of you who have taken the White House pledge to end veterans' homelessness is showing that we are getting the job done. I know we have a lot to do, so I'm going to skip to the end here. A group of us that were kind of the class of 2013 met in the White House with President Obama and Vice President Biden in December. Many of you in this room were there, about 16 of us, a bipartisan group, and we sat down. One of the things I told the President in the 60s and the 70s, Washington, as America's cities burned, came and helped save America's cities. But today, it's the opposite. America's cities are coming to save Washington, because we have to save a nation together. We can't wait for action, but we can inspire it. We can make sure that the things that we do are a legacy and a new chapter of America that doesn't wait for approval from a state capital or from a national capital, but our destiny is in our own hands. Things like our Summers of Learning, where we're doing digital badge-based learning in places like Chicago and Los Angeles to make sure that youth, as poverty rates go up, but as our economy grows too, can build that bridge between opportunities and peril. Making sure that we keep our parks open late at night, making sure that we do those things that can reinvest in the safety of the next chapter. You know, if mayors did rule the world might be more focused on practical challenges instead of ideology and politics. If mayors ruled the world, we might get more done on the basics, creating jobs, protecting citizens, and providing essential city services. But cities will continue, and I, alongside with you, will continue to be focused on providing the basics. And that's why Washington needs to find more opportunities to work with us, and we're still counting on them to help us move forward. As Washington grows more divided, as cities become more important, let's work together to take action where we can. It's in the 21st century, mayors focused on the basics who will start the next New Deal. Let the new mayors of the present chart the new frontier of the future. And I'll bet the great society of tomorrow will begin with the great cities of today. I bet America's renewal doesn't just run through our cities. America's cities are the heartland of this country. And we know indeed that this country depends on our cities because they are the best platform for innovation, they are the best chance for survival, and our best hope for renewal. And folks, I know that's one bet even Mayor de Blasio and I can agree on. Thank you so much.
You are good. Okay, you are good. Awesome job.
Good job. Thank you very much, Mayor. Before we conclude, I want to remind you that there are two very informative best practice forums following this session. One on helping returning veterans and the other on innovations in transportations. Then we have standing committee meetings at 3:45. Tonight, Mayor Rawlings has exciting events planned for us at the Perot Museum and the Clyde Warren Park and an after party at NYLA, right? Did I get it right? We won't want to miss any of it, even though if you're saying that we're going to turn it up from last night, I'm a little afraid because I feel like some of us barely made it through last night. So our plenary session is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Great job, man.
Thank you. Had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun.
Awesome.